The year is 1942. Adolf Hitler's reign over Germany is stronger than ever, and with every battle won, his popularity continues to skyrocket. Yet with Hitler's dictatorship, Germany's citizens had nearly every part of their life controlled by the government. From news media to education, Nazi ideology was spread in the form of propaganda and lies, with the mass majority of German citizens giving it their full support. Yet, hidden in the shadows, was a small passive resistance group determined to fight fascist Nazi ideals. They believed that it was their duty as citizens, even in times of war, to stand up against an evil regime, especially when it was sending hundreds of thousands of its citizens to their deaths. This is their story. Hans and Sophie Scholl were two German teenagers in the 1930s, and like every other German teenager, they were part of the Hitler Youth, a club for children to teach them the ideals of Hitler. This made them and the rest of German youth believe that Hitler was helping to lead Germany back to greatness. However, their parents did not share the same views, their father telling them that Hitler was leading Germany down a path of destruction. Their father encouraged them to read banned books by non-Iran authors and talk to them about taboo issues such as concentration camps. Gradually, they both began to realize what their father said was true. The Scholl siblings began to share their feelings with a few of their close friends, Christoph Probst, Alexander Schmorell, and Willy Graf, who went to school with them at the University of Munich. This group of medical students, which had fostered deep friendships through similarities in profound subjects beyond their shared interest in medicine, initially avoided the topic of politics altogether. However, as the Nazi regime became increasingly oppressive, the group realized the necessity of taking action.
They were not Jewish, but they were good, righteous German people who saw these things, but unlike a lot of Germans, saw a lot of evil in it. They didn't see something that apparently most Germans saw, and that is some sort of evil in controlling the Jews or passing or enacting laws against them, and most Germans were okay with it.
Organized resistance was out of the question, though, due to the fact that the government controlled every aspect of open communication, and the police were permitted to search people and listen into phone calls and open mail without reason. So the group decided to fight the Nazi regime with passive resistance, starting an anonymous leaflet campaign. The Friends became known as the White Rose, the name symbolically representing innocence and purity. Together with Hans Scholl emerging as the group's leader, they made it their goal to get the public to know the truth about the Nazi Party.
The people knew that they were voting for a dictatorship, but it didn't matter because democracy and freedom are all nice words, but they often don't have much weight when you can't put food on the table. It's not about who cares whether I have freedom. I can't feed my family, so that becomes paramount. And besides, they didn't have any experience with democracy anyway.
In between June 27th and July 12th, in early summer of 1942, Hans Scholl and Alex Schmorell wrote the first 4 of the 6 opposition leaflets, which they titled The Leaves of the White Rose. These leaflets attacked the Third Reich and mentioned its crimes, from the mass extermination of Jews to the dictatorship and elimination of the personal freedoms of Germany's citizens. The leaflets also used quotes from great philosophers and highly esteemed writers, demonstrating how the focused audience was aimed at the intellectual public, more specifically students and professors.
And the leaflets pretty much said, this is what your country is doing in your name. They're murdering Jews, but they were medics in the German army. They apparently had witnessed a lot of these things that were going on the Eastern Front, which was pretty brutal, barbaric to the max. There was a lot of killing.
From today's perspective, producing and distributing leaflets sounds like a simple task, but in reality, it was not only challenging, but also posed extreme risk. Due to war rationing, paper was scarce, and buying paper in large amounts raised suspicion. The members of the White Rose worked tirelessly, cranking a hand-operated duplicating machine thousands of times to create leaflets, which they then stuffed in envelopes, stamped and mailed from various major cities in southern Germany. Recipients of the leaflets were chosen from telephone directories and were usually scholars, medics, and pub owners in order to throw off the investigation of the Gestapo, which was Germany's secret police. All members traveled throughout southern Germany to mail stacks of leaflets from undetectable locations. Hundreds of leaflets were also left at the University of Munich, left for the students to find the next day. These leaflets caused a remarkable reaction among the student body, for this resistant literature challenged the regime's authority and stimulated ideas of opposition among young people. From July 23rd to October 30th, 1942, Will, Hans, and Alexander served as medics at the Russian front, and all White Rose activities ceased until their return. After witnessing firsthand the treatment and killing of the Jews, the members of the White Rose understood that the only way Germany could be saved was by losing the war, a difficult epiphany for the students who truly did love their homeland. Once they returned to Germany, their energy increased and they began writing their next leaflet. Alongside them now was philosophy professor Kurt Huber, who shared the same dissent for the fascist Nazi regime. In January 1943, he wrote the fifth and sixth leaflets. This fifth leaflet took a different tone from the others and was now entitled Leaflets of the Resistant Movement of Germany, as was the sixth and final leaflet. Though not as poetic as the other leaflets, the fifth leaflet gave a powerful wake-up call to German citizens, calling them out for blindly following Hitler. The sixth leaflet used beautiful language and wit to make it seem like the group was having a conversation with the reader and helping to rekindle the previous patriotic feelings German citizens once held. On 3 nights in February 1943, the 3rd, 8th, and 15th, Hans, Alexander, and Willie took part in the most dangerous of all the White Rose activities. The three men used tar and paint to write slogans on the sides of houses on Ludwigstrasse, a main street in Munich near the university. They wrote "Down with Hitler," "Hitler mass murderer," "Freedom," and drew crossed-out swastikas hoping to draw even more public attention to the evils of the Third Reich. On February 18, 1943, Hans and Sophie decided to distribute the final leaflets throughout the University of Munich. As they were beginning to leave the building, they realized they had a couple of leaflets left over and decided to return and drop the final ones remaining from a courtyard above. Unbeknownst to their fatal decision, they dropped the leaflets, getting caught in the act moments later by a school janitor. They were arrested on the spot by the Gestapo. During his arrest, a draft for the 7th leaflet written by Christoph Probst was found in Hans Scholl's pocket, prompting the capture of Christoph. On February 22, 1943, just 4 days after their arrest, the Scholl siblings Christoph Probst stood trial in Hitler's People's Court, a court established to eliminate the enemies of Hitler, usually by death sentence. Judge Roland Freisler came all the way from Berlin for the trial, and he could not understand what had corrupted these German youths.
After the Scholls were convicted and sentenced to death, of course, by a guy named Roland Freisler. Roland Freisler was a Nazi judge, referred to often as the hanging judge. And he would get you in his courtroom and you would come before Freisler and he would sit and scream at you.
Defiant even in the face of fear, Sophie remarked to the Freisler, "Somebody, after all, had to make a start. What we wrote and what we said is believed by many others. They just don't dare express themselves as we did." The trial lasted just 4 hours and the Freisler gave them their sentence. They were convicted of treason and sentenced to death. The three of them faced their deaths bravely, as they were executed just mere hours later by guillotine. First to die was Sophie, then Christoph, finally ending with the death of Hans, yelling out his final words, "Long live freedom." Yet, they were not the final ones to die. The Gestapo's investigation was relentless, later arresting and executing the other members of the group, Alex Schmorell, Willy Graf, and Kurt Huber. Any other students who were found to have connections with the group received prison sentences for their actions. Still, even after the deaths of the members of the White Rose, there was no public outcry or protest, as many people were unaware of what even happened until long after their deaths. Yet, the members were giving one final word when the Allies smuggled out the draft of the 7th leaflet and airdropped thousands of copies over Germany in the summer of 1943. Today, the legacy of the White Rose can be seen throughout Germany, with numerous streets, schools, and squares all being named after members of the White Rose. The nonviolent resistance of this group made them a timeless symbol of struggle for the freedom of the human spirit and passive resistance. They showed the world that you didn't have to be powerful to take a stand against the oppressions of the government. Though they didn't ultimately succeed in getting more people to speak out against the Third Reich, they did plant a seed of freedom throughout Germany, helping to start a to break in the Nazi stronghold from the inside. The White Rose members knew that they had to be the ones to take a stand to see the changes they wanted to see in the world, ultimately paying for the price of this freedom with their lives.